Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Week 5 recap, Week 6 preview. We are 5/12ths of the way through the regular season, uh, joined by the only two people who want to appear on this podcast with me, Mr. Kamish, and not our defending champion, but our most common champion. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the intro. It always feels good hearing Kamish. But
Five
I bet
twelves.
but I bet it feels better as being introduced as the most common champ. That is only one person has that. So
The key is he's the most formal. He's the only one who wears a collar to these events. The rest of us are just schmucks.
You guys don't take this serious.
We're going to try and abbreviate tonight's episode slightly. So we're not going to go super in depth on every matchup just to keep this moving a little bit. In addition to it being a little bit of a later start for us, I had some computer issues. So that we can all get to our bedtimes as regularly scheduled, we'll keep this shindig on the road. Um, I don't know if you want to start with any particular matchup or any particular place. I felt like week 5 had a lot of drama and a lot of intrigue, both on the gridiron and off the gridiron in terms of injuries and team news and things like that. I guess I won't highlight too much about my matchup with Josh, but I will say that the matchup itself was determined pretty early on. But then, as I think it was Sunday night, I needed like one more point from who was it? From James Cook to beat Cam for the median. And James Cook like dropped the pass and he like ran for 1 yard. And I was just like, he's just not going to do it, is he? And sure enough, like he had his worst game of the year. And I came up 0.74 short of beating Cam for the median, which was tough. But hey, we'll take it. We're still in the playoff hunt, sitting there at 5-5. So things could be worse.
yeah, it seems like the median battle this week was tight between a few of you. It happened to be between you two specifically, but a lot of people were inching their way to it. Those Monday night median battles are really exciting. The games have been good too. I want to shout out some of these primetime games that have been probably a bit better than average, but these Monday night medians are really helping this league, lock in, watching someone else's matchup, whatever it may be. My biggest observation for the week was it feels like this was the highest scoring week, even though last week had a 130 median, which kind of doesn't make sense. But the only thing that points to that is the lowest scoring person, which happened to be Jason. The low score this week was 103. Every single week prior to, I looked, there was at least 1 to 2 or more people scoring under 100. So the fact that our lowest score was 103 and then after that 110 and above tells me that it was a high scoring week, but the median was 10 points below what it was a week ago. So from that observation, what does that point to for you guys? What do you take away from that?
I think this was a week that was pretty marred by buys, and also injury, right? So there was a lot of movement on the waiver wire. We also expected a little bit of trade activity from some desperate teams before this week. So I don't necessarily think it was everybody's best matchup, but a lot of the buy fill-in players or waiver wire ads really played a significant role. So I think that's what added a little more parity this week. And you'll see that, like, I mean, there was what pretty much everybody, with the exception of 4 teams, 5 teams, scored within 110 and 120. So I think it was just a week to, not necessarily the step player, but the player who stepped up this week from the waivers.
Did you pull that off a t-shirt? Not the stepdad, but the dad who stepped up.
That's right.
I want to shout out Rob and mine matchup just because it's probably the closest game of the year so far. I mean, what's that, 0.16? This man literally went bar for bar, line for line with me. Literally, the quarterback scored the same. Kenneth Walker and Chase Brown very close. Then you go down the line, Jonathan Taylor and Rico Dowdle going for 200 yards against the piss poor Miami Dolphins. Our kickers are the exact same, defense is the exact same. You don't see that very often, but way to put up a fight, Quan, for the Mooney. Rob, I have said a lot of shit about your team this year, and you almost knocked me out. Gave me the non 2-0 week, which at 147 you deserve a 2-0 week. And just like last week, this 1-1 hurts you more than a 2-0 week helps me. But it's fun being part of these matchups. It's tight, especially when you're playing against the defense. So the game starts and I'm losing, and all I can hope for is my Patriots scoring touchdowns, getting yards, and that's what happened. I mean, Stephon Diggs' revenge game, love to see that. I need to kind of retract some of my statements earlier on this pod about Stephon Diggs. That man he has transformed his total outlook, his whole narrative. He's transformed that in a couple of months, because it was this offseason where he was wiggling a bag of pink powder with who knows how many women were on that boat. But from this offseason, that was early August to maybe mid-July or whatever it was, to here we are in early October, and that man is a leader of a franchise coming back off of injury. 10 catches, 150 yards against his former team, arguably the best team in the NFL. They were the last undefeated team. And I love to see it. I won't say another bad word about Stephon Diggs until he does something to mess it up, but I have full faith that he is on the right, leadership path. He's a vocal guy. He's showing up on the field. It's not like he's just talking the talk. He is walking the walk and walking all over these Bills. I expect to see it the rest of the season, and that's exactly what you need for a guy like Drake May, who clearly has it. Willie said he's not the guy. Well, I don't know what he's watching, but that's the guy right there. That dude is like perfect on third downs. That dude is showing up in the fourth quarter. And if he's not him, then I don't know who's him, because Drake May showed up prime time, under the lights, whatever you got to say. With a guy like Stephon Diggs, this team is going places, and it's only year one, because a rookie year hardly counts. So I know I started with Rob and I's matchup, but like, I got to give it to my Patriots and Drake May. And we gave the AFC East only 5 years off, and we're here again. So sorry, Dolphins fans, I couldn't give a fuck about the Dolphins. The Patriots are back, and I love it.
While we're on Rob's team, I want to ask you guys, we talked about last week that if he went 0-2, you were going to write him off and say that was it and he's out of the playoff hunt. He is only 4 games. Cam, you made this point earlier today in the group chat. He's only 4 games out of a playoff spot right now. He's 2 weeks away from potentially being inside the cut line. How are you feeling about Rob's team and his playoff chances after this week and this performance?
You know, great performance. He set the perfect lineup, right? He didn't leave really any points on his bench. The problem with Rob's team is he got 55 points from players that he added to his team this week in Matt Stafford and Rico Dowdle. Matt Stafford has had a little bit of resurgence. I think if you take that away, Rob's got less than 100 points. Still great performance, but I still have questions about his depth. I think the bye week's going to hurt him the upcoming weeks. So I still have concerns. He's definitely not out of it, but I still maintain that he needs to be making some trades. And he made some good waiver wire additions this week for sure. I don't know if Rico Dowdle is going to run for 200 yards every single week. I don't know if he's even going to be the starter next week. And, Matt Stafford played well. It didn't start the game very well, but he finished it in what was a shootout. I don't expect that the Rams were going to lose that game either. But I think Rob's going to need to make some trades here to kind of maybe take down some of this, elite level assets into, some more depth, because the bye weeks are coming, as irregularly dispersed as they may be. So I think Rob has a little bit more work to do, but he's certainly not out of it yet.
Let's quickly talk about the other 1-win team, and this was another heartbreaker. I know it was a slow death at the hands of Willie yet again. This time, not Willie's Billies, but Willie's Kareem Hunt that came back to bite Troy. 7 carries and 2 of them for touchdowns was tough. And 18 points was enough at the end to overcome what at one point said a 99% chance for Troy to win. And Willie somehow gets it done and sits there at 5-5, unbelievably. Thoughts on what was a tough 0-2 week. He was 4 points away essentially from being 2-0 this week. And to add insult to injury, lost another halfback, Omarion Hampton. I mean, Troy just can't catch a break at the moment.
No, it's tough. I mean, it's going to take a miracle for him to do anything. He's got the stronger lineup between him and Rob, but Rob actually has the better outlook after this week. Between Stafford and that Dowdle pickup. Even if Dowdle isn't the starter going forward, I think they're going to trust him. They're going to give him some more looks. Like you don't just you don't just put up 200 yards and then you're on the bench. Um, Too many injuries to overcome. His 2 best players between Jefferson and Collins are going to be out in week 6. Whoever's got him next week, that's almost a lock for a win. His only hope is holding on, kind of going 1-1, and just is and if he gets a 2-0 week in the next few weeks, he's still in it and just holding out for those injuries to come back. But after this week, I think Rob has the better outlook, which is crazy because I was counting him out a week ago, which I still think. I just think the percentages, the math is there, but the percentages aren't. The odds aren't there. Um, I think
He
these
does
two are
also play Johnny this week. So Troy plays Cam and Rob plays Johnny. So that's the 11 and the 12 seeds playing the 1 and the 2 seeds this week. So not a lot of help from either of them from the scheduling gods.
right. These percentages are the 99% sleeper percentages that they love to give out. But you know how that goes. That 99%. I mean, it was saying that I had lost the game already to Rob because I was losing because I was playing the defense. So they need to figure out their AI and their formulas. Trevor, call them up. You need to expand your AI to projection rankings rather than just player draft rankings, because they could use the help there. It's not looking good. Even though his team looks good. I mean, I don't want to bring dynasty into it, but like this is a dynasty league team. That's a team I would want for if that was my team for multiple seasons. Um, but this is redraft, so it's got to be this year, and it's not happening this year. So it's tough. Peekaboos, we're still searching for you, man.
Yeah, I mean, Troy had mentioned this in the chat at some point late Sunday afternoon when Amari DiMercato dropped that touchdown while crossing the goal line. That at the time he must have had some sort of Nostradamus because he said that that touchdown would lose them the game. And I think not, I didn't believe him when he said that because he had such a steady lead over Willie at the time, but it was true. It actually cost him 2 wins. 6 points would have swung the median in his favor too. Um, yeah, the only reason why I do believe in Troy's team a little bit more is because if he did want to make a move, he has the more tools in his tool belt to make trades. Um, I think you're 1-9. You can't have take lock anymore on your players, right? You need to go with what's in the best interest of your organization and make some trades. I know he's been active and looking to make trades. He just put his entire roster on the trade block today. Um, but the only reason why I kind of nod Troy's direction is even though he does lose a lot of depth, I don't think Amari DiMercato is going to be starting for the Cardinals anytime soon. But he has some pieces to deal to kind of regain some depth. So I still have some faith in Troy's team a little bit more so than Rob's.
I want to say this. I think that was the wrong call in the touchdown, by the way. I think it does cross the goal line before he drops it, but I guess they don't have the down the line shot, or he's on the or whatever it was. But I saw an angle where it looked like he crossed the goal line, but because of the mistake, they didn't give it to him, which sucks for that guy, and especially if his coach is punching him in the shoulder when it happens on the sideline, and the coach getting fined $100,000. Like it's kind of a snowball effect here. But I think that was the wrong call. I think he crossed the goal line, and for it to turn into this sucks for that guy, especially when he's tried to make that breakthrough effort as a running back in this league, because he's been kind of peeking around his whole career, but never really took over the role. And something like that, just his chances are shot. But I
I
think it was
don't
the
have a
wrong call.
lot of sympathy for players in that situation though, because I feel like somehow this happens every year where someone drops the ball before the goal line, either in pro or college or sometimes both. And like you just have to know you can't make it that close. Like you need to take two steps into the end zone before you're going to put the ball down if you're going to celebrate. Like you can't leave it to do they have an angle where they see that the ball crossed the plane. It's like it's insane that that happens every year.
I wholeheartedly agree. I don't really have sympathy for him, but I do think as far as the call is concerned,
Yeah,
that's what I'm more
yeah.
defending per se than yeah.
I have two sort of trivia questions for you here. Um, one is who do you think is well, this sort of gives it away the way I'm asking this question, but it sort of blew my mind anyways. Who do you think is higher in max points for right now? 1-9 Troy or 8-2 Johnny?
Well, you said it, but based on the question, it's got to be Johnny.
No, it's Troy.
Or that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Troy has 675 max points for to Johnny's 672, but in actual points, it's 622 to 551 in favor of Johnny.
Mm,
So Troy could have theoretically scored three more points than Johnny, but he's 70 behind in terms of actual points for. That is
mm,
tough.
And that's
yeah.
manager efficiency right there. And that's
Yeah.
why Trevor is 5-5 and not 10-0.
Yep.
Mm.
Because if he was picking
And
at anything,
who
yeah.
do you think is last in max points for was my second question so far this season.
I'm gonna say Jason.
That's correct.
Yeah.
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 4-6 Jason, our low scorer this week, 103. He's only one game out of the playoffs though, and he's sitting there in last position in both points for and max points for.
Yikes, man. He's got a few guys coming back. He's got Rasheed coming back in a couple weeks. And I think there was someone else that I keep forgetting. Christian
Christian
Watson's
Watson.
coming out. I know he's not like that dude, but he could be a good piece for this Green Bay offense that they've been missing. I mean, they lost to Joe Flacco and the Browns, and they're now playing Joe Flacco and the Bengals this week. So we'll see what happens there. I do want to shout out Johnny's team, though. I know you just said he's lower in max points for, but the past couple weeks he's been scoring a lot of points. He was the league leader this week. His team might be just ramping up, just kind of a slow start. I mean, he's 8-2, but he's low on the points for, and he's scoring 150 this week. I think he got over 130 last week. This is a team to look out for. He's got some dudes on his team, except for Michael Pittman. I still don't believe in him. I think it's more the Colts juju that they got going on for Michael Pittman. But everyone else, it's a good start from with Rashad White. Um, good bench, a lot to play with there. So I'm keeping an eye on Johnny's team because this feels like he won't be slowing down anytime soon because he already had the slow start.
He has
Yeah.
also benefited from the worst, the lowest points against so far this season. So we'll see whether that continues. But he
Sure.
could struggle if he has some good teams to play in the next couple weeks.
Yeah. And he suddenly has a little bit of depth on his team. I mean, Tyquan Thornton looks like the ad hoc wide receiver one until Rashee Rice comes back. He's been playing well so far. Mike Evans will be back hopefully in a couple weeks. Xavier Legette comes out of nowhere, makes a sick touchdown, one-handed touchdown grab in that Dolphins game in the corner of the end zone. Um, and I think, there's been signs of Arondé Gadsden playing well so far this year, so has a little bit of depth. Definitely has some pieces to make a run, and it's insane to me that the only healthy person on the 49ers roster right now is Christian McCaffrey, who is quietly, in my mind, the number 6 overall player in fantasy right now. Picked up right where he left off in 2023. I knew he was playing well. I didn't know he was the number 2 overall running back, which is kind of surprising to me.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Cam, I wanted to pose a question to you real quick. Um, Last week, as the number one seed, number one points, number one wins, you asked about the panic meter for yourself.
Uh-huh.
How do you feel about your lowest scoring week being 120 is like a few people's highest scoring week? Are you panicking? Are you freaking out? Are you making trades? Or are you gonna just throw it in our faces all year long?
Um, you know, I'm not as panicked. I mean, 9-1. I have some wiggle room to make some mistakes in order to not make the playoffs. I mean, I started Sean Tucker this week as my running back one, and David Montgomery had a passing touchdown. Like, it's just my roster's been fluky. I was not excited about starting Josh Downs. I made that decision at the last second to try to start him over Kendrick Bourne, which I thought was going to bite me in the ass after Kendrick Bourne went Jerry Rice mode on Thursday night. Um, Panic meter's definitely down. I was a little nervous playing Trevor, who's been all world. He didn't have his best week. I was definitely nervous watching Patrick Mahomes rush for a touchdown last night, and somehow the Chiefs kind of wrapped up Travis Etienne. I don't think the panic meter for my team is that high, but if you look at my team up, top to bottom, it's not a solid and deep team. I've had to make a couple waiver wire ads this year, like Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Warren, um, you know, or no, not Jalen Warren, Kenny Gainwell, I should say. Brenton Strange had to plug in a couple times. So it's just not, it's just been a weird year, and I've just been fairly fortunate. But a lot of that has to do with making the right playoff, make the right lineup call. So
Yeah, manager efficiency. I think that's an underrated thing, and I like to highlight it as much as I can. Um, but I think you're right. I mean, 9-1. This doesn't look like a 9-1 team. But I'd like to suggest that this is wide open. This league is wide open. While you have a few wins ahead of the most of the pack, I think this regular season is anybody's to take. Um, I mean, it's fantasy football, so there's a lot, plenty of ups and downs. It's almost impossible to predict the rest of the season, let alone the next game. Um, but while we do have a 9-1 and two 1-9s, I don't think it's that much of a gap between everyone.
I agree.
no, not at all. I mentioned this last time, and I was touching on it briefly now. Um, Manager efficiency, from my perspective this year, has had to do one, injuries have kind of played in my favor because I have to start my studs. There's no question about, am I going to start Josh Downs or am I going to start George Pickens? It's going to be my studs, right? So, like, injuries sometimes help you in that way because you have to stick with your guys, and sometimes you're scrounging around on the waivers. Like, injuries can help your efficiency in that sense because you're not making lineup choices that could fuck you by the end of the week. So, um, kind of been unfortunate in the sense that I lost what was essentially my first round draft pick, but I've been lucky that I haven't had these tough choices to make week over week.
Mm-hmm.
One note on Eric's team, just because we haven't talked about him yet. I just want a moment of silence for the $11 of fab that he spent on Jake Browning, who now has been benched for Joe Flacco. I love looking at fab spending. Sometimes I scroll back and look at like prior weeks just because it's funny to like look back and see like who paid off and who didn't. Like Josh this week spent 14 on Theo Johnson, which looks great. Spent another 26 on Isaiah Bond, which doesn't necessarily look great. Although we'll see whether Dylan Gabriel can unlock him in the future. But it was also just funny that nobody else bid on those two players, so there was $40 that he could have saved. But yeah, when I look back and saw $11 for Jake Browning, that made me chuckle. So Eric, sorry that you had to do that. Any other week
Great.
5 thoughts?
Well, you guys were right about the most amount of players bought. We had 14 waivers on last Wednesday morning. That's up there. That's got to be up. You got to scroll a couple. If you're on your phone, you got to scroll a couple times to get through them all. That's got to be a record.
Yeah, and
Um,
another expensive tight end, Darren Waller going for 41, which looks like it might be a bargain if he keeps scoring 2 touchdowns a game.
mhm.
What about $26 spend on Isaiah Bond with no other bids?
Yeah, on Theo Johnson and Isaiah Bond, those are 40 buckaroos that Josh put out there that he didn't need to spend. Always a tough look.
Yeah. Well, he's in a position where he is scoring a lot of points, but he's not getting the wins. So he might feel a little bit more desperate than he probably should.
Yeah.
So understandably making splashes there, but it's tough to make these calls, just like any of the lineup decisions. And I know I asked this question on week one, but like playing the hot hand or playing the names, Cam, you said about the injuries, it's kind of easier to make lineup decisions when there's injuries and or whatever it may be. You just see people going up and down the depth chart. Have you, Nick, maybe this is towards you. Have you felt like you were playing hotter players, or are you just sticking with your best guys week on week? Do you feel like, you can answer for yourself, but the league in general, do you think people are just playing their best guys, or do you feel like a lot of people are making lineup decisions based on a prior week or who's hot?
Um, I mean, unfortunately, I think I've dealt with a decent number of injuries, so I've been in a position of having to pick up a lot of guys and start them right away. And in those situations, I've been going for like I've been trying to find guys that are going to get more opportunities, like a RB2 where the running back one might be hurt, like a Michael Wilson, the Michael Carter, excuse me, this past week for the Cardinals and whatnot. Or trying to find guys that have like a good matchup, like wide receivers and things of that nature that might have like a good matchup this week. So been forced into some I haven't necessarily just been able to like plug in my biggest names and play them. Like CD's been out for a bit, Terry McLaurin's out. So dealing with some stuff for guys that Brock Bowers keeps going out, and I have to keep picking up tight ends to plug in there. So been dealing with some health issues on the squad that kind of forced my hand.
Yeah. I would say also, like, I think this has been a common trend amongst all fantasy people on Twitter and Reddit and even amongst this league. Like, if you look at the top 10 drafted wide receivers in our draft this year, like, I think only two of them are still in the top 10. And some of them are even outside of the top 40, right? If you look at like Lad McConkey and AJ Brown and, aside from injury, right? Like, some of these guys have just massively underperformed. So you've kind of had to rely on your seventh through the 10th round picks to kind of carry you. And some of that, and sometimes it's paid off. Like George Pickens I was fortunate for that pick and CD getting hurt. So um, you've kind of had to rely on your depth pieces. And if you pick the defense early, maybe that kind of bit you in the ass, right? Maybe if you went three tight ends deep, which I guess didn't really hurt Alex too much, but you really needed that wide receiver three to step up and do a wide receiver one role during these injury riddled weeks for receivers.
I also just looking at the fab spend from last week. I always think it's funny when like guys who are dropped turn into guys that like we want. And I know Troy was frustrated that he picked up DeMarcado and dropped Haskins, and now Haskins is like number one on the waiver wire and probably going to be pretty expensive tomorrow morning, I would imagine. And maybe Troy is buying him back. We'll see because he has a pretty big need. Um, and Colin, I was also laughing at your kicker situation because you dropped Joey Sly after a tough week, and then he scored 12, and you picked up Josh Carty, who eked out 4 points and looked like he was, as I think Cam compared Jake Browning to Helen Keller. Carty had a little bit of Helen Kellerism going on Thursday night as well.
Yeah, I feel like every year I have one positional group that I just can't get right. Fortunately, this year my quarterbacks I've gotten right between Fields and Drake May. I feel good about that, but my kickers are not doing it for me. If I'm going to pick a positional group where I have a struggle with, I'm okay with the kickers. I'm really strong on playing defenses. One year was my tight ends. The year I went 2-22, I had nobody to choose from, so it was my entire team that my positional group just was ass. Um, you know, if kickers is what I'm struggling with, then I can't really complain. But it is a headache. It is a headache. Um, so it is what it is. I was curious though. You mentioned Troy, with the Haskins DeMarcado issue. What's his fob at? Can you see his fob right now? Is
I
that where?
can. Yeah, he is at 45.
There it is.
Yeah. He's
Okay.
third lowest. So you have 34, Johnny has 33, and then Troy's next lowest at 45. Everyone has spent at least some fab, by the way, which is pretty cool. I feel like normally at this point in the season, we have a few people still at 100.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Alex has spent 27 fab. Usually he hoards that and never uses it all season. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you think that if you are Troy or Rob and you're trying to make a trade in this league, that rather than getting like some really not so hot bench piece that might be a depth, like you might ask for like 30 or 40 fab as like a major bargaining chip in these coming trades?
I would. I mean, I think what you are seeing is each week there are guys available who you can plug in and start. And so if you don't have those guys and someone is looking to like, up tier, I think if you get a plug and play person and enough fab to get you a second one, like that can do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. And because I'm a big spender already, I don't know if I have that chip to play, which is another reason why maybe you don't blow fab. Considering the guys I've spent my fab on have not done much, which there's a whole season, there's a whole half a season left at least. So we'll see. But that's an interesting point. One guy loves the fob. Quan for the Mooney is in his name. He loves the Mooney. So it's interesting that you bring that up.
And he's usually a pretty big fab trader, at least in other leagues that we're a part of. So I'm sure he's going to be pulling for that in future trade ops.
Yeah, just looking at the top waiver folks right now, top trending, six of the top eight are available in our league. We'll see if any of that changes on Monday morning or on Wednesday morning. But Hassan Haskins, Kamani Vidal, Ryan Flournoy, Brandon McManus, AJ Barner, and Joe Flacco, all trending at the moment and all available in our league. So to that point, there are a lot of guys out there that folks want at the moment. So we'll see how much fab gets spent. I expect it to be maybe not quite as crazy as last week, but pretty darn close. I'm gonna say.
Nick, didn't you drop Barner?
I did. I believe I dropped McManus and Barner.
And weren't you
Um,
just saying you were having some tight end issues?
yes, that's correct. Although I did get like 6.5 out of Chigo Okonkwo last week. So he was. I didn't like Barner's matchup, although he ended up scoring 2 touchdowns. So what the hell do I know? But um,
And remind me how much fab you have again?
I have 83. So it's,
Woo!
Barner might be a little out of your price range.
Yeah, we might not be able to barter for Barner.
Anything else you want to talk about week 5 before we go to week 6? All right, let's take a
Hmm.
quick look at our matchups. We'll do some predictions. Um, Matchup of two 5-5 teams this week between me and Eric. Um, we're both starting generational quarterbacks who once or currently played for the Giants in Daniel Jones and Jackson Dart. Um, I don't think my lineup is quite set yet. I think I have some work to do to get my lineup set. I'm hoping guys can come back like Scary Terry, maybe Brock Bowers. We'll see. So I'm going to back myself. Juwan Jennings could be back. I'm going to say once my lineup gets fully healthy and I get all my guys in, that I take this one.
Yeah, you do have a lot of guys out, even on your bench. So that'll be, that's a waiting game. Anybody on what's the Thursday night game?
It's Giants and Eagles.
Oh, so that does affect you, and it affects him.
Yep.
So that'll be interesting to see. You're picking at 90% to his 88.5%, and you're averaging 116 to his 122. Because you have so many people out and because you're actually backing yourself this week, I'm gonna go ahead with Eric.
Makes perfect
Um,
sense.
I'm just going to point one thing out. Eric currently has his starting defense is the Vikings, who are on a bye. He has one defense on his bench, who are the Ravens, who are by far the worst defense in the league. Might be a generationally bad defense. Might give up 600 points this year. Have only scored positive points on defense once against the Cleveland Browns. Everything else has been -5 or worse. And then the
37
Rams.
points. or more.
Yep. They played the Rams this week, potentially without Lamar Jackson. He might be better off just leaving the Vikings defense in than actually playing the Ravens. For that reason, poor management decisions. I go Nick.
Yeah, I assumed he had already set his lineup by just leaving the Vikings in there.
I wanted to
Um,
mention, because
yeah,
you mentioned that in one of the leagues I'm in, there is a penalty for if you don't play a full lineup. It's escaping me what that penalty is, but I'm interested to see if we could implement that in this one, just because I find that interesting. You got to play your lineup, like that's the whole point. You can't play a guy on bye, so you're forcing transactions, that sort of thing. And this would be a perfect example of. Uh, let me get back to you on that. What that punishment is.
I like that. I don't hate that. Um, all right, next, another matchup of two 5-5 teams. We have Trevor against Willie. This is probably I think folks would expect Trevor to win this one. But Willie seems to eke out wins in strange ways, and he's got the Bills on Monday night against Atlanta. I'm going to say Trevor goes into Monday night, projected for a comfortable win, and somehow Willie's magic happens again, and he ends up beating Trevor here in a late upset.
It's hard for me to kind of imagine that these two teams are both 5-5 right now. I look at Trevor's matchups this week, and they all look pretty appetizing, right? Mahomes in the dome. I think it's going to be a shootout on Monday night between the Falcons and the Bills. I see good matchups on Trevor's side, and Willie just hasn't really inspired me much. I know Pacheco played decent this past. I mean, not really well, 7.1 points, but I don't think Josh Allen has enough to get him across the finish line. I think Trevor wins this one.
Yeah, real quick, I want to mention the punishment. Um, the first offense is a warning. The second and third offense are losing rookie picks because it's a dynasty league, and the fourth offense is league removal. So
Hmm.
it's pretty hefty if you're not setting your lineup and being active and fair to the everyone else. How to redirect that to a redraft league? I would have to put some thought into it, and I would be willing and able to hear offers and or whatever it may be. But back to this matchup, um, Trevor is still picking at below 80%, 79.9% compared to Willie's not so great 84.7%. But at least Trevor's scoring 128 a game to Willie's 119 a game. DB&C's got this all day. There's no way to twist this. I think Willie, he's had his up and down season. This will be a down week. Even if he scores 130, DB&C's putting up 160.
My proposal on how we implement that would be first time is a warning, and then each violation after that, you move up the round of the pick that you forfeit in our draft the following year. So if I don't remember if we have 19 rounds, but second violation means you forfeit your 19th round pick. Third violation means now it's your 18th round pick. Fourth violation, 17th, et cetera, et cetera. So if yeah, I don't imagine this would happen. I don't think anyone's probably ever missed their lineup more than once or twice in a year. But theoretically, if someone was completely checked out, they could end up like forfeiting like a mid-round pick.
Yeah, I like that. I will consider that'll be taken into consideration by the board of members.
Yep.
I will say I'm looking more for more of an immediate punishment rather than, oh, I didn't set my lineup in week 6 last year. I don't get my 19th next year. So, but I like where your head's at, and I appreciate the consideration.
It would need to be pretty steep from a points loss perspective because even if you take off 4 points from his total score, I mean, the Ravens are averaging 80% of the time they're scoring -5 points or less. So it needs to be a pretty steep amount of points for it to make sense for Eric to not set his lineup.
Maybe if you don't set your lineup, you have to start the Ravens defense the following week. We force trade the Ravens defense to whoever didn't set their lineup, and they have to use them.
or you don't set your lineup and you're forced to not play a player the next week. But that's kind of like a redundant, that's kind of a hypocritical punishment. Like, whatever.
All right, next, Alex against Josh. If you told us before the season one of these teams would be 7-3 and the other would be 3-7 heading into this matchup, I don't think many people would have said Alex would be the 7-3 team. But here we are. Josh is quietly on a big skid as well. Just double checking. Yeah, he's lost 6 games in a row. So 3
Mhm.
straight 0-2 weeks. I'm taking Alex. I like what I've seen from his team this year. He's scored almost 100 points more than Josh has. I guess about 60 points more than Josh has. So give me Alex.
Doesn't look like Alex has set his lineup fully yet. We projected to lose by 4, but he still has Roma Dunze, DK Metcalf on his bench, which is additional probably about 17-ish points. Um, I think Alex wins here. I think Josh is in the market to make some trades. He has some good trade pieces too, and I think he has to make up for some not so hot depth. Caleb Johnson looks to be a dark mark on his draft so far. Um, so I think Josh is probably in the market for some trades, and I think Alex wins this one.
Yeah, I got Alex on this one too. 88.5% to Josh's 86.9% picking rate. Alex is also averaging 135 to Josh's 122. Alex definitely doesn't have his full lineup set between Metcalf and Odunze. Even Bucky Irving is out, and I think he's day to day, so he could play this week. Even on a light workload, that dude can make a lot of plays. And I think you're absolutely right with Josh's team. Like, the running back depth isn't there. Amon Ra can't do it all from fantasy perspective. He's still got Spencer Schrader on his team, so like a lot of lineup movement going to be happening before the end of the week. And he's forced to start Cooper Kupp too, who's just been non-existent. Um, so I don't not a lot of positives from Josh's team, even though he has been scoring a lot of points. I mean, averaging 122 is you know solid, but I think Alex gets this one.
Next, we have Colin against Jason. I think this one might be the biggest blowout of the week. I'm starting to believe in Colin's team. He's got a lot of green matchups. He's starting the Packers defense against Cincinnati. That's going to be a 30 burger for the Packers defense. Easy, maybe 40 burger. So give me Skip in a landslide.
Skip, do you disagree?
I won't be that uh gloating. I won't gloat about my team that much. I appreciate the words of encouragement. I'll always listen to it. As far as spitting it myself, I'm gonna refrain from that. I don't feel like you, Cam. I don't really feel like my team is as strong as it might have been showing the past few weeks. I'm averaging 124, and I'm only picking at an 86% rate, which is, I would say, middle of the pack or below average. Whereas Jason, maybe it doesn't mean much because he's not scoring a lot of points, but he's picking at 93%. And that doesn't really surprise me because Jason is a good manager. It's just the team isn't there this year. I mean, Derrick Henry is your first round pick, and he's had nothing to do since that Bills game. Even Brian Thomas is probably his second round pick, and he just hasn't looked the same from his rookie year. So, and that's not on Jason, right? You can't predict these things. Um, so it is impressive he's picking at 93%, but the team isn't there. Whereas my team, you know, I'm not sold that the Packers are going to put up 30 as from a fantasy perspective. They already lost to Joe Flacco this year, and they're playing him again. Well, seemingly, I would imagine they traded for Joe Flacco and are benching Jake Browning right away. I'm even questioning that call. I might play the Patriots defense against New Orleans because the only reason why New Orleans would seem stronger than they are is because they played the Giants last week. And I made the mistake of starting that defense against New Orleans. The Patriots are a much stronger defense than the Giants. So, but I'll probably stick with the Packers just because it's Cincinnati. They look terrible, but Jamar Chase could run all over them. I mean, they let up 40 to the Dallas Cowboys. I would imagine the Bengals are going to be trying to, simulate that game rather than the other games against the Packers. Jonathan Taylor's still doing everything for me. He's the number one running back, obviously, but he's number 3 overall as a running back. That's impressive. Um, and I asked everyone last week if there was going to be a trade before the Sunday slate, and there was no trade. So every week that goes on, that trades of happening or the chances of trades happening are much higher. So I'm expecting a trade. I'm not thinking you know I'm not guessing if there's going to be a trade or not before Sunday. I'm expecting a trade before Sunday. Um, and
You
I
can
may
force
be
one.
one of them because I feel the need to make that trade. That roster unbalance, I'm feeling that roster unbalance. I'm forced to start, I'm still forced to start waiver pickups. Between Fannin, I feel good about, but like Troy Franklin and Chris and well, I think I drafted Christian Kirk, but yeah, I drafted Christian Kirk, but Troy Franklin is my wide receiver 3, and I'm not feeling good about that. He's an integral part to that offense, but I need some more balance. I typically have balanced teams, and this year's not it. And so I'm picking myself. That goes without saying, but trade season it has to be right now.
I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say that Jason's wide receiver room is the worst wide receiver room in the league. If you just look at performance throughout this year, I thought Rob had the worst through this season. He has Cortland Sutton, who's number 11, but Jason's best wide receiver right now is not even a wide receiver 3 as far as player rankings go. Brian Thomas is wide receiver number 39 on the season. And I think that that has just been the story for Jason's team so far this year. I mean, Jameson, right? They're all wide receiver 3 or worse. Jerry Jeudy should be probably removed from the league with how bad he's been playing. But I think that that's been the reason why Jason has been playing well, aside from his poor bench depth, right? Rashee Rice has been suspended. Christian Watson was PUP for a while. Colson Loveland, I don't even think plays for the Bears currently. So I think that his wide receiver room, I didn't realize that until I just looked at it, but his 1 through 5 wide receivers are all wide receiver 4s or worse.
That is tough. He's got to hope Rashee Rice comes back and looks legit.
Yeah.
2 matchups remaining. Johnny against Rob. I just think even though Johnny, he's not putting up the points for the max points for, I don't know that Rob's team has enough. Saquon on a short week. I don't know if he, has a huge game this week. So I think this one will probably be closer than people expect, but I think Johnny ekes out a win. Low scoring.
I think
Yeah,
Rob gets his first head-to-head win this week. Um, I think if Chuba Hubbard is still on a snap count and Rico Dowdle's playing well versus which is a Swiss cheese defense in Dallas, it's kind of a revenge game for him. I think Ricky Pearsall is healthy this week. I think he comes back, and that's a high-scoring game against Tampa Bay. Slip him into your flex or maybe potentially over Malik Washington, at your wide receiver. I think this is probably the game that the median influences the most. But I think Rob gets a head-to-head win.
yeah, I'm gonna disagree. Um, Johnny's picking at 92%. He's got so much to choose from, and he's picking that rate. That's impressive. He's having a killer year. Not scoring a lot of points, but neither is Rob. With that, with Rob's 147 from last week, his average points per game went from 99 to 109. So with one week, that's how much it swings. That says a lot about where your team is scoring. He's also been forced to start Malik Washingbeard and Torrey Horton, who's getting special teams touchdowns. Rob, I mean, yeah, no, this is Johnny all day. Um, Rob can only hope for another median win, and it could be a low scoring one. I'm not sure what teams are on the bye this year or this week, but um, definitely low scoring. Could be the median battle. I don't think Rob can pull this one off.
And last but not least, Cam against Troy. I think depending on how many points Jalen Hurts scores on Thursday night, this one could be over at that point. I don't know if Troy's team has enough firepower to outscore the combination of Goddard and Hurts on Thursday night. So Cam by 80.
Go ahead, Skip.
Well, Cam's picking at 90%, above average, top three, I think. And Troy's picking at 81%. So he's not really helping himself out there with lineup decisions. Cam's averaging 145 to Troy's 110.
And Troy has Bo Nix and RJ Harvey playing early on Sunday. I mean, playing overseas. No chance.
Yeah, I don't know if I can pick Troy here. It's got to be Cam reluctantly again. It's funny though. You said what you said about Jalen Hurts. They finally let him throw the ball a bunch. He had 38 attempts, and they lose the game. So maybe stick to not throwing the ball and not throwing to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, and you'll get back to winning. But that was a good showing by the Denver Broncos for them to beat the undefeated team there in the Eagles. You know, it's Cam all day between Puka against the Baltimore Ravens defense. I mean, he's talk about 80 points. That's going to be Nakua's that at halftime. He's going to be at 80. He's going to have 80 receptions for the day. George Pickens against Carolina. Like this is Cam all day. I don't know if I need to pile it on anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some question marks. I don't know if Jalen Warren's fully healthy playing against what is probably the best defense in the league in the Cleveland Browns. And then Chuba Hubbard, I haven't seen any reports that he's not going to play this coming week, but I know he's probably still going to be nursing that calf injury. It's some pretty big question marks around my running back room this week. Still have to start Elick Manor, unfortunately. I will say one of my favorite picks, or at least as of recently, has been the Dallas Goedert pick. It seems like he's the only person who's actually being utilized in that passing game, and that whole team, with the exception of the 1 week where AJ Brown kind of went off. But he's had a touchdown or at least 7 points every single week, which it's all I can really ask for when I picked him in the 13th round or whatever. So he's been a passable late round starting tight end pick, and just been fortunate that he's stacked with Jalen Hurts too.
Why is Kendrick Bourne projected 0.55 points? He's projected a catch and no yards for this game. Why? Please explain that to me.
Or maybe a rush.
For 5 yards. Literally had 10 catches for like 130 yards last game.
I think they're expecting both Pearsall and Juwan Jennings back this week. So I think Bourne could be back to being the Bourne no more identity.
Okay. Well, that's it. Okay, well, maybe that answers the question. But like, let's say Pearsall and Juwan Jennings are playing. Do you start Kendrick Bourne knowing that you might have to fill in a flex spot there, or do you not trust that he will still be that guy with the chemistry that he's shown with none other than Mac Jones?
His New England Patriots quarterback from a couple years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try to make some waiver additions tonight. I really hope I not have Warren or Hubbard. I do have Kenny Gainwell though in Jalen Warren's absence. I'm not loving that I have to start Elick Manor every single week, even though he did play well for the first couple of weeks. But it's going to come down to Manor or Bourne. And I'm not super stoked about Josh Downs either. So one of those three, just roll the dice and see what happens.
Sure.
Any final thoughts about week 6 before we wrap up here?
Just every single 5-5 team plays each other this week. I think we're going to see some pretty big shakeups as far as the league standings go by the end of this week. And then, of course, the top 2 teams play the bottom 2 teams. So we could see some more stratification amongst the playoff race by the time week 7 rolls around.
Right, like the top and the bottom are getting further away, but the middle is still a shit show. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I do think we get a trade. I think we finally get the first, maybe not the first in-season trade, but
Yeah,
right,
we
that's
had
There's been one, yeah.
Juwan
Okay.
Jennings for Tyler Algier.
That's right. That's right, a wide receiver 1 for a clear RB2. I'm curious to see it. Let's track that next week when we're, have more time. But
I think at least to this point, Algier has outscored him, and that's because Juwan got hurt like basically right after I acquired him. So
all right, well, I think we see a more impactful grade before the Sunday slate. And I do not think we get 14 waiver pickups, but I still think it's 10 or more and a bunch of fob spent. So,
over under 100 fab total spent this week.
I'd have to see the historical numbers through the first 5 weeks, but I'm gonna go ahead and go over just because if it's 10 guys getting picked up, I think it averages over 10 per person. So, I mean, between the first 4 guys, it's almost 100 right there already. So,
Yeah, we were definitely over 100 last week.
yeah.
I think it's consolidated. I don't think it's more than 100, but I do think that there are probably 3 or 4 guys who get like 15 to 20 each.
I'm gonna say under, but I think it's close.
Yeah. What's the biggest fob spend with no other bids?
Ooh,
Is
that's a good
somebody going to
question.
spend 20 with no other bids?
Um, I'm gonna say it's 11. 11 is the biggest with no reply this week.
Well, I see you have 7 waivers again, so maybe you have some better insight into that.
Again, sometimes that's just having 4 kickers lined up or whatever.
Hey man, I got 0 at the moment, so seven feels a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna say like 8 is the five spend with no other bids.
Colin, you want to go 9.5?
No, I'll go 69 and a half.
Nice.
All right. Well, good luck to all, and to all, good luck. We will see you this time next week. We might be a 2-man booth. We might be able to convince someone to join the pod. We'll see. But we'll be officially past the halfway mark next time we meet.
We might be going live from the delivery room.
Hey, we'll see.
Stay tuned.